Good evening. I'd like to ask you about your quote about 75% of laws being made by the European Union.
It's a bit low, but
apparently that's a misquote. It's that they have a say in 75%, and only regulation that accounts for the European Union. So only 10.4% of laws here have that sort of thing. So
you're a Labour Party member too, aren't you? You must be a Labour Party member too, because they tried that in 2008 and they very quickly gave up on it. And even Gordon Brown admitted it was more than 50.
So, in actual, so my question is, what is the problem with pooling sovereignty, not surrendering it, and accepting that certain things, such as human rights, are universal, that we share such ideas and morality?
Well, first things first, your figures are below me. As I say, this was an attempt by the sort of international socialist part of the left who want a United States. In fact, some of them don't just want a United States of Europe, they want one world government. That's the way some of these people actually, they're crackers, so that's what they think. The 75% figure is up for challenge, and I accept that. I do accept that, because in Germany, Roman Herzog, the former president of Germany, conducted a survey of all legislation in Germany between 1998 and 2006, and he found that 84% of German legislation had come from Brussels. I accept 75, we may be too low, I accept that. I'm prepared to concede. You've got to hold your hands up when you're wrong, but I concede we could be wrong. But we have a completely impotent parliament. Pooling sovereignty. This is what Michael Heseltine says. These are the weasel words of those who so loathe and despise this country. They want to get rid of our independence and our freedom and our sovereignty and hand it over to this ghastly bunch of people, and they are ghastly people. I say that not because I disagree with them, but because, just look at how they're acting in Greece and Italy to realise how bad they are. You cannot pool your sovereignty. I mean, it's a bit like virginity sovereignty. Either you've got it or you haven't. I don't think there's a sort of halfway house with this. So the idea, and you also said legislation over which we have a say. Yeah, we have a say, all right. We have a say, all right. 8%. We have an 8% say in the European Parliament and ultimately in the European Council over whether something becomes a law or not. I am not really interested in us having an 8% say over the future of this country. I want us to have 100% say, and I'm going to go on fighting for that. All right?
Mr. Farage, can you tell me please about, do you think that America hijacked Europe foreign policy is using against Iran and against Russia? I think that America is abusing European democracy because European leaders are not listening to European people. They're just only listening to only one man, to the American president or to the Israel.
That's a tough question, because I'm not sure myself. Historically, European Union foreign policy, or the foreign policy of many of its states, particularly the French, has tended to be the opposite to America. Deliberately. And it's as if the EU's been set up as a counterbalance to America. And the hatred of America that I hear in the European Parliament is remarkable. I rather like America, but I don't like American foreign policy. And I've been opposed to the Afghanistan war, I've been opposed to the Iraq war, just thinking, wasn't Harold Wilson sensible? When Lyndon Johnson came to Downing Street in 1966 and said, we want British troops to come and help us in Vietnam, you owe us, we have a special relationship. Wilson replied by saying, special relationships mean you can say no as well as saying yes. So it's a damn good thing we didn't send British troops to Vietnam, and we shouldn't have got involved in those two engagements. What you've seen on Iran over the last couple of months are America and the EU acting similarly, because actually there is a genuine fear. The EU there is a genuine fear in Brussels about Iran's nuclear programme. And there's no getting away from that. And am I concerned about it? Yes. I'm concerned about it. Are sanctions the right answer? No. Completely the wrong answer. And I'll tell you why. With sanctions, you stop foreign cars coming into the country. You stop all sorts of foreign goods coming into the country. And so what happens is the state-controlled and state-owned motor car company now has a monopoly on selling cars in Iran. Ironically, financially, sanctions are the best thing that's ever happened to Ahmadinejad and his friends, and the way I think we should be approaching Iran is completely the other way round. We should be attempting to have as free a possible trade and to encourage the growth of the internet and computers right across Iran, and then people will see this regime they've got is backward, is taking them for a ride, and they'll be more inclined to having different values. Quite honestly, it's such a complex area, it deserves an evening's debate, and I hope that's a reasonable answer for now. Right, we're going to do a few more. Not too many more, but we're going to do a few more, okay? It's been a long week, it really has.
Good evening, Mr. Farage. The ramifications of leaving the EU will be huge, and the only way you're going to do it is if UKIP win the election, because the red, yellow and blue club will just not allow you to do it, because they're all living together. So how are you actually going to do it? How are you going to set up border controls? How are you going to monitor the 5,000 vehicles bringing loads into this country a day that comes through Dover alone? How are you going to control the border?
I think it's more than 5,000 actually, it's more like 10.
5%.
I was going to say, yeah, it's certainly upwards of 5. The ramifications of leaving the EU, in terms of our relationship with other European countries, are actually remarkably small. Remarkably small. Because if you're doing business with an Italian company, you just go on doing business with an Italian company. If you're going on holiday to Greece, well, if they leave the euro, it'll be really cheap, won't it? But, you will go on your family holiday to Greece. So the ramifications of our relationship with the EU are remarkably small. The potential ramifications for how we run this country, I would agree with you, are enormous. And that, I think, is the exciting thing. Because it gives us an opportunity to get our fishing waters back. Just first day, we say we're taking back our fishing waters, we're abolishing discards of overquoted fish. So the potential we would have to get things right, the potential we would have to adopt in trade terms a more global approach than European approach, I find very exciting. Look, you're quite right when you say that the red, the yellow and the blue are utterly committed to keeping us in the EU and utterly committed to not giving us a referendum. You are quite right about that, which is why I said that pressure groups actually aren't the answer. Look, albeit under a PR system, but I do think the fact UKIP managed to come second across the entire country in 2009 was an extraordinary thing. I felt dreadful the next day, but there we are. Hell of a party. The fact that in the opinion polls last year, despite the massive inbuilt disadvantage to UKIP of the first past the post, I mean, we are the one party that suffers more than anybody with the first past the post system, because our support is spread across England, particularly, in a very linear fashion. But, coming up to Christmas, there we were, level pegging, and in one opinion poll, ahead of the Lib Dems. Now, this is partly a reflection, of course, of the fact that the Lib Dems were the student age bracket, and not as popular as they were. So we're on the up. We're on the up. And if we get into this position, as I say, where in a county like Kent, with the exception of Tunbridge Wells, the Tory party cannot win a single seat, because UKIP has become so big and strong, by the time 2015 comes along, I promise you, there will be a referendum. I do know Cameron a little bit. I don't dislike him as a man, and there are some people I do dislike, and I say so, but I don't dislike him as a man. But I'm convinced of one thing. His real motivation is to have the keys of the door to number 10 Downing Street after the 2015 election. That matters far more to him than any political ideology. And if we're the barrier between him and the keys to the door of number 10, then we will get our referendum. And as I repeat, if the British people completely disagree with the view that I've got, and Kate Huey's got, and Bill Cash has got, if they disagree completely and want us to stay part of this thing, I will respect that. I won't like it, but I'll respect that. But the reason I'm here, and the reason I've given up a well-paid job to do this, is because we've been told a pack of deliberate lies by these people for decade after decade. Oh, it's just a common market. Nothing to worry about. And the day the European Constitution was launched, back in 2003, Giscard d'Estaing stood there and said, with this document, we become a global superpower. And Peter Hain, who was the Europe Minister, was in the House of Commons saying, it's just a mere tidying up exercise. It's a classic example of the extent to which career politicians in Britain have denied us the truth on this issue, and that's why I'm here. I'm not against anybody in Europe, I'm not against European nations, but I'm very angry with our career politicians in Britain for giving away what I see as our birthright.
Right, just one more question.
Thank you. Yeah.
Is it not true that the problems in Greece stem from a national and a global recession, not just the euro? And if it wasn't for the European Union and the money given by the European Central Bank, which wouldn't have been given, we wouldn't go and buy a load of unstable bonds in Greece and in Italy if we were on our own. We wouldn't have done that. The money that was there in the financial safety net from the European Central Bank has enabled Greece to stay afloat and to have the working class people not be completely destitute. And if the country had gone bankrupt, then we would have a knock-on effect because we would lose trade with Italy and Greece. If it wasn't for the ECB and the IMF, then how would Greece have been able to stay afloat at all?
The money that has come from the European institutions and the IMF, yeah, that money that has gone to the Greek government has been used to pay off banks that made very imprudent loans in the first place. It is almost like an unholy alliance between Goldman Sachs and the European Commission. That money is not benefiting Greek people at all. And the problem these Mediterranean countries have had is this. If you, economists here, if you look at long-term interest rates, you will see Deutsche Mark interest rates roughly doing this. You will see, if you put together Greek, Portuguese, Spanish and Italian interest rates into one line, you'll see a gap like this. That all the way through the 80s and 90s, there was a massive differential between interest rates in Germany and what we call the Club Med. Huge divergence of rates. They joined the euro and suddenly it was all one interest rate. And what it meant, by the way, Ireland should be included in this too. What it meant is suddenly there was free money. Because interest rates overnight, in Spain for example, had halved. And at the time the banks had all gone completely bloody mad and were bending over to lend. And Greece went on a 7-year party. The biggest booze-up in history. Where the glass was constantly being filled up. And they said, "Way, this is absolutely marvellous. We can bring the retirement age down to 55. We can, in the case of Spain, we can build, let's start massive building developments." And the real tragedy was that they lived through a completely false boom, and it meant that when the bus came, it was far worse than it could have been. And what the Greeks need now is devaluation. If they're kept trapped inside this economic prison of the euro, I mean it, there will be a revolution. So the euro has been a disaster for the Mediterranean. It was a disaster in the good times because it fueled a false boom, and it's now actually facing a catastrophe. Currency rates are a bit like a golf handicap. You know, you could be Tiger Woods, I could be the local club club golfer at Canterbury Hills, and we can go out on a Sunday morning and have a good game of golf because of the handicap system. And if in 10 years' time, you know, you're much worse than you were and I'm much better, then that handicap between the two of us would narrow. And that's how foreign exchange rates work. They go up or down according to your relative strength or weakness against your trading partners. And every attempt in history to fix exchange rates has ended in a mess and ended in a break. And Greece should have left the euro over a year ago. She's being kept inside by Merkel and others because they want to preserve their European dream. Well, I'll tell you what, they're not going to preserve their European dream. Firstly, because the economics are bust, and second, because morally it is bankrupt. And right across Europe, in the United Kingdom and elsewhere, people are realising we have been the victims of the most gigantic hoax on our democracy, Ponzi scheme on our economies, and the sooner we break it up and have a Europe of nation states, the happier I'll be. Can I say thanks very much for the invitation this evening.
Thank you very much, Mr. Farage. And yeah, just to echo that point, thank you very much from all corners of Canterbury, students, citizens. I hope you've really had a very good night. We welcome your contribution. It's been fascinating. We hope to see you again at the next Making Politics Matter event. And I'd like to, on behalf of my programme, on behalf of the university, and on behalf of the city, again, very, very warm thank you for coming along today. Thank you very much.
Very good.